Thank you for visiting Past the Wire TV, the YouTube channel of PastTheWire.com.
Read the best, and hope for the best.
Vekoma broke well on the outside, and
But you don't expect to get speed like this.
Inside, Vekoma continues to battle on down the rail. It is Vekoma who's going to win the Met Mile.
You know, one of the things we're seeing at Saratoga is just some incredible race riding. And to get things started on today's Saratoga Today, we are going to hear from John Velazquez and Manny Franco and see some backstretch footage as well, courtesy of the best videographer on the grounds, James Gazelle. So let's get ready before Dawn and I get to work and see a little bit of Saratoga.
I'm very blessed. I mean, obviously, I done really well here in Saratoga. It's like there's no expectations, basically. For me, I'm an older guy. You know, I just want to ride races and win some races and be part of it. You know, thankful and blessed to be here, be part of it. You know, at my age, not that many guys get the opportunity to be here in Saratoga and be competitive at a high level. So I am very blessed to be part of it. That's it. I think I am a mentor for a lot of them. But it's always been here in Saratoga. You know, every year. The New York colony of jockeys is extreme to the top, you know. So proud of it too, you know, being here with them, being with the old generation as well. So, you know, being part of three different generations, if you will. I've been here for 32 years, I think, coming to Saratoga, 32, maybe 33 years. So being around for a long time, and again, very blessed.
I work hard every day. Be here in the mornings every day, trying to get some mounts, and I think that's what I get to where I am right now. Working hard and dedication. You gotta work more harder because the competition gets tougher, and with those riders coming from out of town, and if you work, everything is gonna be okay. You just have to work hard. You gotta be on top of your business, and like I say, make the most of the opportunity they give it to you, and I think that's the key.
The riders typically that you use most of the time, and you try to get one of them. Sometimes they're not available, but and you do try to pair riders that you think would suit certain horses in general. I mean, each horse is different. And some riders are aggressive out of the gate, some riders are patient. So it just depends on the style. You do try to pair horses that fit the rider within your group of riders that you use, basically. You talk it over the rider. I find the better quality riders, you tell them less, and most of the time you're telling the rider instructions is because maybe there's that lack of confidence you have as far as working together. The more you know a rider and the more confidence you have in him, at least you say most, or at least me. I mean, I find most of the time when I'm talking too much, I'm not 100% confident.
They're just taking a couple of turns before they go. This is actually a cool setting that they have this. That the horse is kind of that European style. You can see the horse before they go in a circle.
So they're going to go jog now on the track?
New York traffic's going to gallop. Kitsilot's going to jog, and the filly's going to jog.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Saratoga Today with Dawn Lupul, myself, John Stettin. It's week 3 at the spa. We're rolling along. Any opening thoughts, Dawn?
Saratoga is not disappointing. this year at all. It has been, I think I figured it out after the first whatever we've had. It's been somewhere around just over 20% favorites hitting.
Right.
So, for most tracks now, John, that things have changed, right? With shorter fields and everything
Right.
else, that a lot of the tracks are averaging between 35 and almost 40% of winning favorites, which makes it tough for, your style of play where you're not looking for those kind of horses to bet. But Saratoga is not like that at all. So it has been fabulous so far.
Yeah, it's been an interesting meet. Saratoga's always been a very streaky meet for me.
Yes.
Haven't really gotten hot yet, but that always changes at some point during the meet. And the way I bet, it really only takes one or two
Mhm.
to turn that around. They've had some controversy with races coming off the turf that people don't agree with. I personally hate the rule where after the pick 4 or pick 5 begin, they take a race off or switch surfaces, taking it off the turf, and it becomes an all race. That happened yesterday. The last 2 races were all, and it's kind of the equivalent of a refund. I mean, you're lucky if you get your bet back, depending on what you bet and how much. Usually you do, but it's really a refund. So it is what it is. I thought the most bizarre thing that I had seen in a while was the race, and I don't know if you saw it, where the outrider yelled to the riders to pull up because there was a tractor malfunction and the gate looked like it might be left on the racetrack. Riders were looking around. I thought they made the only call they could to make that a no contest. But it's rare, you don't see things like that all the time. And then you saw a race the other day, I think the day before, where one of the gates just was not malfunctioning and they left it open. So, I'm not kind of sure what's going on, but
glitches.
Yeah, little glitches. A lot of people are criticizing the small fields in the big stakes. Okay, and we've had a couple of 4-horse fields, and that is discouraging. And from a betting standpoint, it makes it challenging. But one thing that it does do, that as a fan and student of the game, I enjoy watching. Well, first off, the fields were small, but they were quality. Okay, you've got some nice horses in those small fields, but it really creates a chess match between the riders, where you really get to watch their thought process and their race riding skills in those small fields, where it comes down to really, working out the trip and making the right move and making the difference. And I think we've seen some great race riding as far as that goes. I thought Joel Rosario's ride on Clairiere against Malathat was just outstanding race riding and thinking during the race, and just, not allowing what other riders were trying to do to, affect them. I just thought that was a really, really heads up, gutsy ride. So you get to see that, and if you can find a way to bet those races and come out okay, I guess it's fun. But I enjoyed them just the same.
Yeah, and not every single one of those races with the short fields is being won by the heavy favorites either, right?
That's
There's
true.
been a couple of upsets. So
Yeah.
It is what it is. It's what we're dealing with now. I mean, you can say there's a lot of reasons for it. You start pointing declining full crop, you go back to the origins of it. Saturation, a little bit watered down with so many stakes at so many different tracks. It's happening in Europe too. I like watching European racing too, and they've definitely had a lot of stakes where you're seeing 5-horse fields, 4-horse fields. So it's not
100%.
just here. It just is what it is.
Yeah, no, 100%. And Del Mar's been lucky so far. They've had some big competitive fields in their stakes, and everybody's pointing to that, saying, well, look how much better Del Mar is doing. But we'll see how that plays out over the course of the entire meet. They're still relatively new. We're not at the halfway point at either meet. So we'll see how that continues to play out. Saturday, I think, is a real exciting card. I'm excited to watch it. I think the Jim Dandy is a great race. Small field, 5 horses, but I think it's a great race. Alfred Vanderbilt, the other grade one, looks very challenging to get around Jackie's Warrior. We'll touch base on that later. But I'll start off with a spot I like in the first race.
All right.
Bill Mott over the years has always been low percentage first time out, and always gets criticized about that, especially from what I like to call the peanut gallery on social media. Mott never wins first time out, he's a toss. And every time when he would win it at big price and I would have him at Saratoga, and it's the last 5-6 years, I'd be like, yeah, he never wins, but he won now, and I kind of like him by default in the first race on Saturday a little bit. Okay. One of the angles that I followed for years and years and years at Saratoga are horses that win there have a tendency to win there again. And bloodlines that have been successful there tend to produce horses that are successful there. It's a nuanced idiosyncrasy. I don't know how you quantify it or qualify it, but I've been doing this long enough to know that there is something there. It holds true at Saratoga, in my opinion, probably more so than any other racetrack that I have ever followed. Okay. I go back to noticing this when I was a kid, and learning things like that from my mom. My mom was big into pedigrees like that, and she would always say when I was a little kid, like 10, 11 years old, and already starting to absorb information about racing, because I loved it from way back then. She would always say, "Oh, I remember we would be at Saratoga. Say, oh, I remember I won on this horse's sire up here, or this horse's dam up here, and I'd be like, really? And then they would win, and we'd always follow those lines. And if you look at space, first time starter, 2-year-old, 10-1 on the morning line will probably get overlooked because you've got Asmussen in there. Shug, who's also not a great first-time starter trainer. Brendan Walsh, who's been kind of hot lately, even though he's 0 for 6 at the meet. You've got a horse from Parks that looks a little bit live, shipping in for Danny Velazquez, but and Steve Asmussen, of course. But this horse is related to Mucho, who was a first-time out winner at Saratoga. Size, who was a first-time out winner at Saratoga. By default, with those two things, with knowing that, Mott can pop at Saratoga, I like horses that winter at Payson Park. That's a very deep, heavy track. So when horses come off Payson and don't run in Florida and then ship to New York, they're pretty fit, so you've got a 2-year-old here that I know is fit. 5.5 from the rail, if you don't have that, jump out speed, can be a little bit of trouble. But when I look at it like this. Steve Asmussen's horse to 2, 5-2, American Pharaoh, probably going to be over bet whether he can run or not. The Parks horse, I'm not sold on. Brendan Walsh is 0 for 6 at the meet. Street Boss, I tend to lean to them on the grass more than the dirt. I don't know. Godolphin, probably he'll be a little over bet. Shug is not unbeatable first time out. And Ian Wilkes, who's 2-1 on the morning line with a hard spun, working fast and working well, attract some attention. But Ian's not really a first time out trainer. So I thought this was a good spot for maybe Mott to pop with one of those 8, 9, 10, 11-1 shots that flies in under the radar in a small field and maybe gets the job done. So I think there's worse shots to take in the first than on space.
Yeah, there's a lot going on in this race with just a short 6-horse field. So all the reasons you just mentioned, the different trainers, the pedigrees. As a son of Go Sapper, I am a little concerned about him just getting out there and flying the 5.5 furlongs at first asking. But he's definitely one of several that you could point to in here. The Parks horse, the 3 Tatum, he is the only starter in the field. Some people think that's an advantage. It can be in terms of experience. But when you get at this level, most of the trainers have certainly put their youngsters in competitive situations, these are bigger barns that can run, they can school 3 or 4 of them at a time and almost simulate racing circumstances, especially breaking out of the gate. So that tends to be negated in these fields. But I don't mind Tatum. Velazquez is not certainly not a household name on the NYRA circuit, but he does actually exceptionally well with the second-time starters. Yeah, so I think you have to look at him. You mentioned Ian Wilkes. I really like the 6 Bourbon Resolve. I want to like him more than I think is warranted. He gets an outside draw, which I think can be it can be a strong advantage in these 5.5 furlong sprints. Because if you have speed, you can get your position. Horses to the inside, if you don't have speed, you know what happens. When you've got post 1 or 2, all of a sudden you find yourself shuffled back. They drop down on you. They're babies. So it can be a little bit intimidating. So I do prefer an middle of the gate outside draw. But you're right, Wilkes he's just not a first time starting kind of a guy. I looked up his stat. He's 9 for 200. The fact that he started 200 babies in the last 5 years, I thought was amazing, but he's 9 for 200 with 2-year-old first-time starters. So, that's not a very stellar stat. There were other horses in here. Yeah, Bourbon Resolve, the 6 horse, is working very quickly. So I don't know if he can overcome the Wilkes stat. I looked at the 3 horse Tatum as one I mentioned, the 2 horse Swiss Guard too. You talked about, Asmussen. So for a short field, why not take a stab? Your horse will be legitimate value down on the inside and probably has an equal chance to the others.
And I'll tell you something that I found interesting, that when you really look close, and I may age myself here in an interesting kind of way, because I don't know how accurate this statement is going to be. I'm just going through off my first impression. But all those negatives that you pointed out about the one on the rail with Ghost Sapphire, I saw. And what kind of swayed me, I should say, back on to him were 2 works. Okay. One was the April 29th work at Payson, where when he got the bullet going 3 furlongs in 37-3 over that deep heavy track. The other one was on April 15th at Payson, where Mott worked him 2 furlongs in 25 and 4 breezing. It was the 3rd fastest out of 13 works, and he's got a 2 furlong work before that. I don't remember Mott working horses, even 2-year-olds, 2 furlongs often. So maybe he's trying to get some speed into this horse, or looking towards winning one of these baby races at Saratoga, because he thinks the horse, is a first time out type of winner. Claiborne loves to win up there. We know that. So I'm just thinking maybe, those 3 works really kind of said, you know what? All those negatives I see, but I still think with, in this field, that one might be worth a shot. So that's a shot I'm definitely going to look at on Saturday.
Yeah, I fully, and he's worked a lot, right? Like he's worked him a lot, and comes off of a turf work too, which is entertaining. So we've seen stamina horses being very well rewarded. The main track has been so tiring. I don't know if the rain that fell on Thursday and turned the track into a sloppy mess is maybe going to tighten things up. It might. So we have to watch the races today on Friday very carefully to see if the trend of the horses being able to come from off the pace continues.
Right. We're not seeing the track record broken twice in the same day like we did last Saturday at Mount by Highly Motivated and then Cyberknife a couple of races later. I think yesterday they ran one of the races in the 3/4 in 1:16 and changed it.
The first race.
And I wasn't even sure if is that right. I don't even know.
Yeah,
so,
it's a little tiring, and that what good races the ones I'm having the most success with right now are the 7 furlongs. Just finding anything that routed in the start before and is turning back to 7 furlongs, and they really seem to have an advantage.
Right, and if the track continues to play the way it has been, I think that helps Mott's horse in the first race, because those pace and works, like I said, they tend to get a horse really, really fit. So I kind of like that. I've got 2 other horses that I was looking at, but anything that caught your eye?
Well, you know what? I kind of like the whole card, except like the Jockey's Warrior race. It's looking like one of those good races to watch, and you get.
Well, let me throw this at that race. Is there a way around Jackie's Warrior.
If you're playing multis, or like, is there a way
Anyway,
to
I mean,
beat
is there a
him?
way
are you
not, is
trying
there a way
say?
to bet against them and it makes sense?
Not for me. You know what? There is a horse in there that I'm quite a fan of. It's the 3-horse New York Traffic, but you know, there's like Saffie's little New York bred in there. I mean, he's run some really nice races against some decent horses, but I don't know. I can't make a strong case for him. He loves the distance and everything else, but
He looks like he's a sprinter. He does. He really
he
does.
does.
He's a sprinter, you know?
Yeah, but if Jackie comes with his A game, and I have to assume that he will. I saw him paddock schooling on Wednesday, and he physically looks really, really good. Apparently the workout reports have been positive. So I have to say no. I mean, I always like to try to find a reason to bet against those kind of horses, but it's Jackie.
I agree. I looked long and hard and tried to find a way around him. And just all roads kept leading back to him, you know, and I just couldn't find a scenario that would justify taking anybody else. That 4-for-4 at Saratoga is huge in my book. They're just yeah. I agree. I'll tell you one spot that I did like a little bit was the 6th race. You know, one of the things I always look for, and I think we've seen some really good examples of this year, is, you know, pace and trip determine a lot. I would say a lot more of the outcomes of the everyday race than sometimes the best horse just winning does. And I thought that there was a horse in the 6th race that might be a little bit pace advantage, and that was the 2, Missy Greer. When I look at Missy Greer, I see a filly that they wanted to put on the turf originally. Okay, her 2 starts in 2021 were both on the grass. First one was pretty good. Second one, not so much on the good turf. She was 6-5 that day though, off the good race. So I got to assume, okay, something happened. She laid off from October till February, and they brought her back on the dirt where she ran okay, and then she completely flopped in the Black-Eyed Susan. All right. She was off Lasix that day. She goes back on Lasix now. Her best 2 races were with Lasix. And she's first time blinkers on the grass and first time Lasix on the grass. When I look at the field, I don't see a lot of pace in the race. And I know Kendrick, when he has a live horse, he likes to go. Okay, so he's not one to fool around. He'll say, come catch me if you can. So I expect him to put this filly on the lead from the inside, save ground on the inner turf, on you know, right into that turn. And they're going to have to catch her. And I think that may prove tough to do if things go the way that I think that they might. 12-1. I'll take it all day long on this filly. And another angle is Kendrick rides very, very well for that barn. That barn puts him on a lot of live horses day in and day out over the course of a year. So I know there's a connection there. I know, you know, that's one of his barns. The last couple of works are really good. I mean, the works are you know, I haven't been able to find any of them to actually watch, but they look on paper very, very good. So I think she was absolutely a live one.
Yeah, if you're ever going to get her to steal a race, I mean, this race, she can just go out there and walk the dog. Like, there is no other pace. She should be out in front. She probably doesn't have to go too fast to get there. The track bias, the track trend has been favoring horses sitting just off of the pace, not necessarily in front, but if you're able to get away with really cheap fractions, I kind of targeted her to be maybe able to hang on for second or third, just because she has that distinct edge in speed that you talked about. I just see something else being classier than her and getting by her late.
Could be.
But for all the reasons you said, I love the fact that after the disaster of the Black-Eyed Susan, that Gargan gave her time off. She's been working quickly since then and working well. So it's kind of like a fresh, I would just draw a line through that last race. It just wasn't her day. It just didn't work out. And I do think getting on the turf is good. The one horse Marvelous Maud will get that in there. She kind of has that perfect running style for sitting sort of close, you know, she's inside. She should be able to ease off of the rail, not have to be stuck down there and come running. We're looking at her to try to win back-to-back, which isn't super easy. It's funny because I like looking up silly stats sometimes. You can stat yourself all day if you want. Chad does win back-to-back with turf allowances. He wins just 27% of the time. It's not like he's winning 100, so it's 27%. But at Saratoga, he's only 5 for 44. It is not easy to double up at Saratoga because often you're looking, when you win, you have to move up. And when you move up, you're facing horses that are probably coming down. And so it just gets a lot tougher. So that is not a strong stat for Chad coming off of a win, trying to double up at Saratoga whatsoever. I thought the 3 finest work, the 6 Wicked Groove, were interesting in that race too, but it looks like kind of a fun race to play exactas.
Yeah, no, I agree. And although you said it's tough to win double up at Saratoga or any, you know, the 1 and 3 are interesting to me because they're both New York breds and they're both multiple winners racing against one-time winners because the state bred races don't count in the open company races. And I tend to upgrade horses that are multiple winners against limited winners. So I think that kind of evens out with those 2 horses. And you know, I was looking at maybe the 2 being able to get away from them and get the wire job. And the 1 and 3 were the ones that I was looking at for second. And you know, the way I bet, I don't reverse, I don't box. I would bet like the 2 to win and then 2, 1, 2, 3, just that way, you know. And either I hit the win in the exacta or I don't. You know, I don't reverse, I don't box or play multiple, you know, wagers. I just, when I'm right, I want to maximize and capitalize on it, and that's that. But definitely a horse I think is, you know, got a pace advantage and might be able to slip away from them. So we'll see what happens.
I like the race. I was looking at the 9 Ensemble too as being kind of the more unknown in the field with just the 1 start. It was a little bit of a hot race that she was in that last time. You know, the winner was legit enough at 4 to 5, went out there and won. And then the second place horse shipped up to Toronto here and won in an allowance race. So I think the race was legit. And certainly Walsh does win with those kind of horses that have had that kind of freshening. I mean, she shipped from Newmarket last year, but as a Euro, you know, you kind of have to take a look. There's some interesting pedigree on her.
Yeah, I got a feeling she's going to take a lot of money too. We'll see what happens. Interesting race for me to talk about, the Jim Dandy. And you know, someone made a comment on social media or on Twitter that they knew who I was going to like, and I think it's a good example to show of a mistake that a lot of bettors make. And I think, you know, it's certainly worth pointing out. And, you know, I liked Zandon a lot in the Kentucky Derby. I liked him leading into the race. And when race day came, I liked him. I didn't like him on Derby Day because I had liked him leading up into the race. I liked him on Derby Day because when I handicapped the race, that's who I came up with. And I think one of the keys to long-term success or beating this game is going into every race objectively, with no predetermined bias based on a prior bet or a horse you may have liked before. So when the person, and I wish I remembered their name, I think it was Chet or something like that, said that, oh, you know, if you've been following John, you'll know who he likes in the Jim Dandy. I would say, well, if you've been following me, you'll know that that's absolutely not true because I haven't done the race yet, you know. And sure enough, when I did the race, you know, I didn't land on Zandon. And I think it's a good example to show that when you like a horse in one particular race, it doesn't mean that you like them next time or any other time or ever again. Now, that said, I think Zandon is a really nice horse and he might be the best horse coming out of this race and might be the horse that I like in the Travers. But that doesn't mean I like him on Saturday. You know, and I don't. I like the other Chad horse on Saturday, Early Voting. I think Early Voting will get the lead when Jose wants it, and I think he will be very, very tough to run down. And that's where I landed. But more important, I thought, was the example that you don't decide races before they run and before you handicap them. Like, you know, people talk, oh, I love Flightline in the Pacific Classic. Okay, you know, he certainly may win, but how do you know that now when you don't have the past performance or even know who's in the race against him? You know, I think that's a big mistake that bettors make, and maybe Flightline's a bad example because, quote, he's the next superstar, so, you know, maybe he'll just win all the rest of the races he makes it to. But people, I think, do that betting on a daily basis, bet with biases, and I think that's a recipe for disaster over time.
Yeah, you definitely need to see, you know, that's whenever I do media things here, you know, you get called up to do an interview or something and they want to know who you like, and the draw hasn't even happened yet. Right. And it usually happens around Kentucky Derby time or some big race. And you don't know who's for sure in the field because that's always fluid right up until entry time. You don't know what posts your horse is going to draw. You have no real idea of what the weather is going to be. You know, is it going to be sloppy? Is it going to be fast? So yeah, there's a lot of variables that are important. You can never fall in love with a horse just for the horse. You have to love the horse in the race he's in against the company he's keeping. Exactly.
Well said. To talk a little bit more about the Jim Dandy, because it is a big race and it is probably going to be influential in the 3-year-old championship and how these horses, you know, shake out going forward. And I do think that this is a really good crop of 3-year-olds this year. And I normally reserve judgment on that until the next year and until I go on and see them over the course of the year. But this year they just look like, you know, a lot of nice horses. But, you know, Epicenter, it's probably going to be the favorite. Has a lot of respect, has a lot of people on the bandwagon, a lot of hype. Here's my concern about him. Okay. And I was talking to somebody last night, and on a podcast that we do with Past the Wires, Michael Vail really likes him a lot and thinks, you know, well, you know, he can go to the lead. And I said, yeah, if the race was back in February or March, you know, now he's not really showing that kind of speed like he did then. Maybe fresh he might. But I kind of feel about Epicenter, and you know, remains to be seen, but I don't think he was as dominant as people think he was early in the year. I think that he matured and got good earlier than some of the other horses and some of his peers did, and that made him look like he was the dominant 3-year-old and probably propelled him to favoritism in the Kentucky Derby. But I think it was just that he got good and matured and kind of peaked earlier than a lot of those other horses. And now they've kind of all grown up and caught up to him. So I don't know that he's going to be that dominant horse that he was. So we'll find out Saturday. But that's why as a favorite, I thought he could be one that I want to bet against. I mean, Early Voting handled him. A lot of people didn't like the trip and ride he got in the Preakness. I personally don't think it was going to matter. I think Early Voting was going to win that race, and I think Early Voting will beat him on the square again on Saturday. And I think if he does go after Early Voting, and they wind up getting in a tussle, then he'll set it up for his stablemate Zandon. So either scenario that might unfold, I see Epicenter up against it to win. So a lot of people like him. You know, he might be 6-5. I could be wrong. Maybe he is, you know, that good, and he showed the real him in Louisiana, as opposed to what we saw at Churchill and Pimlico, where he did run very, very good races. You know, it can easily be argued he ran the best race of anybody in the Kentucky Derby. You know, being closer to that fast pace than Rich Strike was, and you know, Zandon had every chance to go by him and really couldn't. But I just don't think the setup on Saturday favors him.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what Rosario does with them, because he has, piked him to the front. Perhaps this is a horse, and there were, some trip things in the last couple of races, whatever, but maybe the turn back to 9 furlongs is, maybe he was just a little bit overextended in those last 2 races. I don't know. I mean, you start quibbling about a 16th of a mile here and there, right? But some horses do have those very distinct things that they like or don't like. He has the ability to probably get to the front, but I'm not sure that Rosario will ride him that way. Maybe he wants to just let early voting go and then take that kind of pressing position with that one. But, in all likelihood, John, I like this race, but it's probably not one that I will bet, because outside of those 2, I can't really make a strong case for, trying to support somebody else. I like Zandon, but until he steps forward, he kind of seems to be in a holding pattern right now. He hasn't taken that big leap to the next step that he needs to. So it looks like early voting epicenter, and just a race that doesn't interest me on a betting playing field.
Interesting. I will say this. I don't remember many horses that have looked as good on the racetrack as Zandon has in the past couple of weeks. I mean, I've watched his last couple of works and gallops and seen some footage of him on the backside. And I mean, if it was a beauty contest, he, in my opinion, is hands down the winner. I mean, he just looks like he's really much better than he was in May. So if he does take a step forward and just, inhales these horses anyway, even though he might not have the best setup, then, I won't sit there and say, wow, I'm shocked, because I did think he was the best horse going into the Derby and would win it. And he just didn't get it done. But he really looks a lot better. He looked good going into the Derby, but he looks to the eyes much better now than he did then.
Yeah, it's kind of that's a pet play for Chad Brown too, right? When a horse, so it's in play here with the early voting, and to a similar extent Zandon. But when he has a horse run that runs a top speed figure, top buyer for the horse, Zandon's pairing it up. But when he runs a top figure, I look this, because I like these kind of stats. And then he follows up with a 3 to 6 month layoff at Saratoga, because he really focuses on Saratoga. We know that. That's where his owners like to say, oh, we're leading owner. That's important to that barn. He's 10 for 29 doing that. So peak buyer, 3 to 6 month layoff, Saratoga, 10 for 29. The ROI is $2.42, which for Chad is pretty good, because those horses get over bets. So you can assume that if early voting is a little bit improved, he's going to be tough, but you can also assume that Zandon should be better off of the freshening.
Yeah, no, I agree. I thought that, he had the 2 horses to beat, and I think he's made no secret that the Travers is the race that he's after. He's from that area, and I can't imagine having a better chance to do that than this year with the kind of lineup that he has. And he's got a horse in the Curlin on today as well. So who knows what could happen. Any other spots that you liked on Saturday, Dawn?
Yeah, the last 2 races are awesome in their chaoticness. I don't have a super strong opinion on either one. I just want to discuss the 10th for a second. It's mile and the 16th on the grass. It looks like one of those races where staying out of trouble is going to be the most important thing. Obviously, with a big field like that, there are going to be some trips in here. And I think what's worth noting is the morning line favorite, number 12, Capensis, with the outside draw in this field at a mile and 16th on the melon. That's a rugged little spot to be. Now, this Colt, he may be any kind. I mean, he might be the next champion, because he came out once and ran a 91, right? So he might just be that good. But I think in terms of setup, he's going to have to be that good to try to double up there. I mean, that's just not an easy spot. Some of the other ones I was looking at, what was the Chad Brown horse in there, the 3 Orchestration, just because I figure he'll be able to get a cleaner trip from where he is. It's just an easier place to start. And if I switch those 2 and post, it would be like no contest. It would be the outside horse for sure. And the 10 Coliseo is interesting because Rosario lands there. Ran against some decent stock in France. There's a couple of bears in those running lines of his. But with Wayne Catalano, he doesn't usually fire with those horses that come to his barn the first time. So there's a lot of intrigue and drama, I think, ahead in race number 10. I'm really looking forward to that one.
I would say
the 11th.
Bears and a half. You know, you've got the Revenant, Space Blues, St. Mark's Basilia, who might have been calling him. No, for sure. He's faced some really, really good company. And you know, one thing I've learned about Wayne Catalano over the years, he's one of those guys, in my opinion, that you can throw stats out the window because he can pop at any time. He's just a dangerous trainer that doesn't really conform to any kind of patterns. You know, he just if he's got a good horse, he knows what to do and how to do it. And you just never know. You know, he's one of those guys I very rarely let beat me.
Yeah, and this horse should offer, I mean, 6-1 morning line. And when Wayne comes to Saratoga, it's not, you know, a typical thing that he does, but the horses, when he brings them there, are usually well meant. I mean, he doesn't fool around bringing just kind of lesser stock and just pop the stat up. So at Saratoga last 5 years, he's run 22 starters with 7 wins for 32%, 50% of them in the money, and the ROI is $3.14. So yeah, Wayne doesn't like shipping them just to put them on a truck.
No, I agree. And you know, he rides Rosario when he likes his horses, because in the past 2 years, Joel's rode 3 horses from win with 2 of them. You know, he's just, you know, he goes to him when he's live. This horse has been competitive in Group 1s. No question he's live. And you know, the other knock on the 12, as good as he may be, I mean, he's a $2 million tappet. Obviously, they think a lot of this horse, but you know, that post, like you said, is a maroon post, and he fits that profile we spoke about last week. You know, with the one-time winner with a big number coming back against winners the next time. We pegged one as vulnerable last week that did lose, and you know, this one has that and that post going against him. You know, I mean, it's 2 tough things to overcome. So
it is. And a lot of, you know, the computer guys, when they're putting their programs together and they see that huge buyer, they see $2 million, they see Pletcher, they see bloodlines, all that, and the horse is an automatic play. But you always have to think about the race. Again, that's why we don't love horses before we know what the race is or who they're in against or what post they've drawn or anything else. The circumstances can make the best horses lose. It happens all the time.
no, I agree. And that's, you know, the kind of horse that's probably going to be a heavy favorite in that last race. And, you know, there's definitely some viable alternatives there to pick from. So no argument. Well, interesting card. I'm excited to watch the whole thing from start to finish.
Yeah, it looks like the weather's supposed to be good too, which
Yeah.
you know, it's Saratoga. A rainstorm can pop up at any time, but the weekend does look good, hot again. But being on the turf is crucial for Saturday's card, because there are some excellent full fields on the grass, tough betting, tough racing. I can't see these multis paying, even with the presence of like a Jockey's Warrior right in one, you know, if you're playing later on. I don't know if that'll stop the multi, you know, some kind of a sequence paying good bucks. I think the money's there to be made.
No, I agree. I agree. And, you know, one of the things I'll always say about those multi-race wagers with small fields and a heavy favorite that people say, oh, well, you can't bet it. You can. You just have to be the kind of bettor that's willing to take a stand and, you know, willing, you know, not to use a lot of horses, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, that's how I play those kind of sequences. I just don't spread and don't go deep. And if I'm right, I'm right. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But if you've got a you know, pick 4 or pick 5 for $10 or $20 or $5 or $2, and you know, you're not spread all over the place, it could still turn out to be a very profitable wager. So
yeah, agreed. You know, if you're taking Jockey's Warrior in the 8th, and in the 9th, maybe you're not taking Epicenter. You know, maybe
Right.
you're jumping on Zandon because he should be the third choice in there. He won't be the favorite. He won't be the second choice. He should be third. So if you think he's doing that well, then yeah, those are the ones that you do. You just don't take 2 super short priced horses in the sequence, because then it gets a little bit tough.
Well, I guess we'll reconvene next week then.
Sounds good. I'm looking forward to it. And Sunday's card is good too. So yeah, Saratoga is just
Next week, I think we've got is a huge week, right? I think it's Whitney and Test and all of those races. So that should be interesting. So yeah, no, the whole meet just kind of runs that way. Alabama Day, Travers Day coming up. So we've got a lot of great racing coming up. Always a pleasure. Hopefully we make a little noise on Saturday in the mutuals, and we'll be back next week. Thank you everybody for tuning in, and ciao for now.
Here with some exciting news. DRF Formulator, the gold standard in past performance information, is now free exclusively on DRF Bets. Join DRF Bets with the promo code WINNING. Get a $250 first deposit match bonus, a $10 free bet, and free Formulator already uploaded to your account. Access Formulator's premium features, including sortable trainer stats, race replays, personalized trip notes, and lots more. Free Formulator exclusively on DRF Bets.
Nobody does it better.